966.
The 2023, the Future Minerals Forum, and we'll go with FMF because we'll be saying a lot. So the Future Minerals Forum will take place in Riyadh next week, January 10 through 12. And it will include a ministerial roundtable and followed by the forum and exhibition itself. This is the second Future Minerals Forum after last year's successful launch. Now, and it's expected to have 6,000 attendees from over 130 plus countries, 200 plus global industry speakers from 79 countries, 50 plus ministers and government officials, 150 plus mining companies, all the major ones. Lucian, one of the speakers will be our good friend Amr Khashoggi, an alumnus of the 966, and I'll be interested in getting his perspective as he spoke at last year's FMF as well. Quick background on mining. The mining activity in Saudi is racing along. 38 new mining licenses issued in November, up from 21 in October. The total mining exploration licenses in the kingdom now stand at 2,201, again, up from 2,164 just in October. In October, again, late October 2022, the Saudi Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources announced plans to auction 5 new mining exploration opportunities for local and international investors in 2023. These 5 new sites contain deposits of copper, zinc, lead, and iron, and are being auctioned, in line with new mining investment law. Again, as background, but I think this is an important summit, and it's becoming an important summit. And there's an interesting article published in International Mining Magazine with Rohitesh Dhwan, President and CEO of the International Council on Mining and Mining and Metals, the ICMM, a prominent association that deals with the industry. And he makes the purpose of the One Big Thing is really to share some of his interesting points that may not be apparent in this big shindig next week in Riyadh for the Future Minerals Forum. Point one, the Saudi FMF is a regional project. So he points out that in 2022, there were 32 ministers. And as I mentioned, in 2023, there will be over 50. And he says an interesting thing. The FMF itself is a valuable gathering to bring governments, mining operators, and others together to have high-level conversations. If you think about it, again, this is him speaking, the oil and the gas industry has OPEC and several other forums where it comes together. Mining has not really had that with significant ministerial and industry leadership level participation before. And for the MENA region, and to some extent the wider world, it is now performing that function, unquote. So that it being the Future Minerals Forum. So just in 2 years, it's sort of staked out a significant spot in the sector, both regionally and globally. 2, and this is interesting, MENA, Middle East, North Africa, represents about 23% of the global landmass and is geologically rich and diverse, yet it only accounts for about 6% of global mineral exploration spending. Its mineral reserves are already estimated over 1.6 trillion. This untapped potential is not just an attractive commercial proposition, but it provides a unique opportunity to make giant leaps in sustainable and responsible mining practices. Again, this is the CEO of the ICMM speaking. And it is interesting, Lucian, when we see a lot of reporting on the new mining law, but also on the bids and that sort of thing, that there's a significant discussion about sustainability. 3, and again, the CEO speaking. I have been really encouraged and impressed by the level of detail that both the Saudi Minister and Vice Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources have spoken about on certain key issues. These include water, relocation of local communities, tailings, and sustainability standards, also on how to measure social and economic benefits. So, interesting article that gives us a little bit of a bigger picture than just there's a bunch of key people meeting in Riyadh next week to talk about Saudi geological and mineral prospects and opportunities. We track this. The new mining law came into effect, new Saudi mining law came into effect in January 2021. And in putting that together, they drew from expertise in Canada, Australia, Botswana, and Africa, as well as the World Bank. And they seem to be very committed to employing best practices in all phases of the sector. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is, they're trying to do it right. They're trying to obviously develop their own domestic industry, but also become a nexus for the MENA region. And this Future Mineral Forums, I think, is the flagship for that larger effort. So it's an increasingly interesting confab. And as I mentioned, I'll be really interested to hear what Amr Khashoggi thinks about it this year.
Yeah, Richard, that's a really good one. Amr Khashoggi was a guest really early on when we were launching this podcast. One of the first maybe 10 episodes. I'll have to go back, but he was fantastic. Worth going back to listen to that conversation. His family and his fund is interested in gypsum, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's one of his businesses. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amr is a Renaissance man. He's into everything. He also physically handicapped and special needs kids. He does things with next generation. He's amazing. He's one of the more interesting people in Saudi Arabia,
and real estate as well. I mean, yeah. And Richard, that was a really good one big thing, because this is huge. And two points really to make that I would like to get your thoughts on. Actually, one thing that I saw was interesting about this forum is it's being sort of billed not just for the Middle East, but a term that I haven't seen much, the wider Middle East, or the extended Middle East, that includes parts of Western Asia and a lot of Africa, is sort of a larger sort of footprint that they're talking about here. And Saudi Arabia really has made themselves, and this forum, the FMF, is that the FMF? Yeah. Right. As sort of the annual, I mean, this event has really, really grown. And you could sort of see it this year with a lot of the press coming out beforehand in the months leading up to it. So this is good. This is a big deal, and it's a big thing because it's a big show that they're putting on in just 5 days here. The other thing that I would like to note, Richard, is that I think it's interesting about this is the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources has really two hats. It's industry and mineral resources. So you have Bander Al Khrayef, Osama Zamel, Khalid Al Mudaifer. These guys are sort of leading the ministry, which really has two mandates. And, all mining is really part of industry and industrial development, really, but not all industrial development is part of mining. So the focus here on mining really indicates how serious they're taking mining as a way to diversify the economy. It's not just, we need to create jobs as an abstract thing. It's, we are investing heavily in, and this year, Richard, was a great year for them because they had an auction for the Hanagia. There it is. I used it. Mining site. I was waiting to drop it in. The Hanagia mining site, they had a successful auction for it. And you mentioned they're going to auction off 5 other sites as well. It's clear that there's a lot of activity going on here. So then to host sort of the larger industry-wide event for the region, the wider region, as they're saying now, is significant for Saudi Arabia. And you're seeing something sort of similar in tourism, right? Because tourism is really soaring in Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of sort of untapped potential there. And so Saudi Arabia, I mean, just recently hosted the World Tourism Summit or Forum Council, which was a huge deal. So really part of Saudi Arabia's emerging power story here.
Well, this is agreed, and the government officials you name. It may be good PR, maybe anything, but they all seem to be surpassingly capable and competent.
Yes.
And we've talked again from the very beginning of the 966 about this mining sector and how for years and years, they want it to be the third leg, the third pillar after oil and petrochemicals. And it's rapidly becoming that. We've also talked in the 966 how 2023, this coming year, is going to be sort of, it's shaping up to be a year where a lot of this stuff starts coming together. And it's funny, one of our yellows will be on Hyundai and coming in from manufacturing. You can see their automotive sector, a sector they've just worked so hard and wished so hard to develop, starting to come together. Minerals, tourism, aviation, all these things that they've been planning, talking about, making announcements. Hopefully you start seeing really significant traction on the ground. And the mining, again, as we've talked about, I think in 2021, the mining industry made $23 billion. So it was already pumping along. But it's muscling up even further. And as this, the CEO of ICMM talks about, it's a regional thing now. And it looks like Saudi Arabia is trying to position itself as the nexus for the region.
Yeah, it's not like a nascent. It's a good point. It's not like a nascent industry, and
Not the
Manhattan's
mining.
been around. Yeah, mining. Yeah, it's been around for forever, but it's sort of untapped and not fully realized. So
Right.
that's a good point. I mean, the last sort of point I want to make here is the tie-in to, and you alluded to it, Richard. Actually, well, you said it, but the tie-in to the green economy and sustainability here is sort of at the front. It's not just an afterthought. And then you see Saudi Arabia being interested in EVs and battery manufacturing is a complex process. So you have sort of that tie-in with the both, hats or pillars of what the ministry is doing. It's just, there's really a lot here that it'll be interesting to watch.
But we can't really leave this topic and without getting in your other favorite geological term. And you've got Hunagia in, but your other one, as I recall, is Arabian Shield.
The Arabian Shield, yes, which is so cool. I don't know why that's so cool, but I feel like it would have a really good logo, and maybe a superhero tied to it.
Yeah, we could get an action figure out of that for sure.
I'm sure we could. Yeah. The Arabian Shield is a significant. And Richard, this was one of the first big things we did. Man, we're really going back into the Wayback Machine, but I think it was last January or February when we started talking about Hunagia for the first time, when I was first able to successfully pronounce something correctly on the first time. This is a really good one, Richard. This will be interesting to see. There'll be a lot of media coming out of it this week, as there was in advance of it. So there'll be a lot coming out.